Hey, I can't hear you.
Because I keep forgetting to unmute myself.
There you go.
Happens all the time, man. You think I'd be used to it by now? Um, before we get going,
Yeah.
let me see what I got here. What I have scheduled for us. Cydia is tomorrow for us,
Yeah.
according to our advertising.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't. I really wasn't sure what order you wanted to put it in, so I figured one was as good as the next.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
we'll do Cydia tomorrow.
That's perfect. I'll put out some announcements tonight and tomorrow morning about it.
Nice, nice.
Yep.
Did we want to predict the table again, or did we just want to like discuss each team? Because honestly, that's going to be so hard to
Yeah,
do.
each team. Maybe we'll focus on a few of our favorites, but we'll just give a little blurb about everybody, and maybe I'll look tonight and see if there was any additions to just about every team, so we can talk about that, and then we can just talk about our favorites. Two or
Yeah,
three of our favorites.
and then maybe if we wanted to, we'll predict the top four. Maybe,
That sounds good.
yeah, just something like that. Because the whole table in Cydia, oh my god, that's gonna be so hard.
It is, and also there's news coming out of Man City's been pursuing Koulibaly for forever, and
Hmm.
they're whining and crying about not being able to pay the price that what's his name Laurentis wants. They got the money. Pay if you want the guy, pay the money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Well, they've wanted Koulibaly, I think, since Pep got there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Hi, Lou.
Hi, guys.
Hey Lou,
Well, computer said, laptop said no. And it
well,
looks like I'm upside down.
I hear
Let
you.
me see. Let me see if. Yeah, you might want to try it one more time. Just flip it again and see what happens.
He's
Sometimes,
straight.
those androids. You never know.
You're straight now.
I don't know. Yeah, because for some reason, I don't know what I
There
think
you go.
it's the,
There you go. There you go.
yeah,
You're it. Well, you
yeah,
were.
what the hell?
You were good. Try it again.
There.
Let's see what happens. There you go.
That works.
See, Lou, you just got to
Well,
be patient. You got to treat it
I
like
don't
like
know
a
why.
child.
You know what? The only thing I can figure is, I keep shoving it in my pocket. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. The automatic rotate goes off.
Yeah, that happens.
Honestly, no, and I like to bust your chops a little bit, but the auto rotate function has always been a problem with androids. They never seem to. It just for whatever reason, 9 times in a row it'll work, but that 10th time, for whatever reason, you got to flip it over and then flip it back again.
Yeah.
No, it just shuts off. I got to go to the
Oh,
to like the main menu and just hit
and turn it on.
rotate.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know. I don't have that problem.
Hey,
So,
that may not have gotten on everybody's radar is dumbass Jim Cramer calling Nancy Pelosi crazy Nancy.
I saw that
I
or
did
heard of that.
not see that. No, tell us about it. I did not see that.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he starts off his interview, and he calls her crazy Nancy. He's like, "Are we going to get a deal done with you and with Mnuchin and crazy Nancy Pelosi?" He's like, and I don't. And before he's like, I don't mean to say that myself. I'm just using the word the president says. I would never, I wouldn't use that. And she's like, "You just did." And
Wow.
yeah, and the thing is this, like I was going to say, and I don't want to like pre-rehearse this or anything, but I mean, what's Kramer giving the American public on his show? I mean, friggin', Lou about a month ago gave us the rail stock. I think since you gave it, it's up like 20% since you gave that stock pick. It's up to like 220 or something a share right now. I think it was around $1.70. I think when you recommended it. So
Of course, and I didn't buy any yet.
I mean, I think it could
Yeah, you're
still
gonna have to tell me which one it is again because I forgot to.
just rail RAIL.
It's just RAIL. It's easy to remember.
Yeah.
That is easy, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, people are buying commodities again. People are buying the hard and fast stuff. They're getting away from the chip makers. Chip makers will come back, but for a little while, we're going to have a run of these hard and fast things. And Lou gave a timely opinion on that, and some good information. What's Kramer ever give anybody? I've watched this show. He hits buzzers. A trained monkey can hit buzzers and make fucking noises and shit. The guy's worthless.
Um,
I'll tell you what other stock would be good is you talk about that kind of commodity. How about CSX and Norfolk Southern?
Yeah, I'd look at them.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
CSX,
huge.
I made the mistake a couple years ago. I know an engineer for CSX.
Do you?
It was running about $25, $30 a share. And I said, hey, what's going on? He says, we're getting taken over by this guy. And he's known for slashing overhead and boosting stock prices. Maybe you should buy.
Yeah.
Okay. It was 35. You know what it's trading at today?
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
$80.27.
Yep. 80.27. Yeah. Norfolk Southern's 222.03.
Yeah.
That's a little out of my price range.
I don't know what Union Pacific is. There, you know what? You take the four mains, Union Pacific, and then Kansas City Southern.
Union Pacific's 202.37.
How about Kansas City Southern?
Oh no, you're asking for a whole lot here. Come on, I gave you 3 out of 4. What the hell you want from me?
But you probably never heard of that railroad, but they're a sneak.
Hell no, I never heard of it. I'd have to look them up. What is it? Kansas City Southern?
Kansas City Southern Railroad. They're not big, but their claim to fame. Well, you know what they do a lot of running. They're the main railroad going across the border into Mexico.
187.40.
Okay.
And that's panning out. That pretty much panned out. That dropped to 187.22. Shit. Well, according to this chart, quite some time ago, and it's pretty much panned out. So.
Yeah, freight traffic's down right now, but those are always something to look at. If the market ever crashed again, I think I'd go right back into that kind of. I'd go buy some of that.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to have to. Well, I'll honest. What I did was I just opened a bunch of tabs and put those on. I'm gonna have to keep these fuckers open.
Yeah. A month ago about rail, RAIL, and that's trading at a couple dollars a share, $2.20 something a share. And that's the kind of company that's going to supply these companies with their boxcars. All those other companies are going to, some of them are going to buy their boxcars from rail. So, when they want to restock, and that's like Lou said before, that's a once in a generation kind of thing for the most part. Mm-hmm. But the time is now. And I think it's recently been, as high as $5 or $6 a share within the last 6 months or so. And people are moving away from all the digital and the chip makers and things like that. Apple's even taken a little bit of a beating recently. So if you're looking at something where people are going to jump into a hard product, so to speak, that's got a little bit of run left in it, it might be something to look at. And Lou gave it to us at a time where I think if you jumped in it then, you probably would have made, 20 to 30% on your money. And that just brings me back to, I know we're live, we've been live, but it's after 5:30 now. It brings me back to this moron, this idiot that does a job a trained monkey could do. He reads numbers on a page. He reads numbers that go across the screen. And I'm talking about Jim Kramer, and he hits buzzers and he has all these antics. But what the hell does he do? What does he give us information wise? Does he ever say, here's something you should invest in that ever really works out?
Nope.
Back in 2017, there was a huge run on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And a friend of mine told me, listen, go buy Ethereum right now. And he was just my roommate actually at the time. And I said, I looked into it a little bit with him. I went and bought Ethereum. I doubled my money on Ethereum. I made a huge investment, but I put a couple grand into it. I made $4,000. I could have pulled out $8,000, but I didn't time that right. But I still made $4,000. And that was just a friend who said that. Now, Jim Kramer was nowhere to be found on digital currencies. And that was so obvious if you just had some kind of financial savvy, which the guy claims to have. He's a worthless monkey is what he is. And he's sitting here calling our Speaker of the House Crazy Nancy. That's what he did today. He called her Crazy Nancy. And then he backed off like a little coward and said, those aren't my words. That's the president's words. I would never say that. And she said, you just did.
Yeah, but you know what he does do? He draws eyes.
Yeah.
Right? He draws eyes because of his antics.
Yeah.
He very much reminds me of a radio morning show. You know, I mean, you know, the zany things, you know, that they used to.
Wacky DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really what he reminds me of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he does his job, and the DJ does his job, but it's I don't know if you guys ever saw like the South Park skits whenever Stewie and well, what the hell's the dog's name? Where were the DJ, the morning show hosts, and the why the hell can't I think of the dog's name? I'm the only one of the three of us that watches Family Guy, right? Yeah.
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 Well, no, that's
anyhow, he was
Peter, Lois, Stewie, Chris, Meg, Brian.
Brian. All right. Brian was like, he was supposed to be the quote unquote intellectual, right? So he was very pompous, but he wanted a morning show where it was for the intelligent people. And Stewie shot that out of hell, right? He's doing all the sound effects and he's doing all the over the top, just stereotypical crap, and his ratings went through the roof, and Brian's weren't worth a shit, right? It brings me back to that point. What does Kramer do? Well, he doesn't do a whole hell of a lot of anything, but he draws eyes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, and for that reason, CNBC probably won't do a damn thing because they need the ratings.
No, why would they?
Eyes.
They make more money off of them than they're paying them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Speaking of money, folks, I don't know if you guys caught this today. And I'll be honest, I don't know how I feel about it, right? But Louisville, and it goes right across Lou. There you go. Louisville settles Breonna Taylor's wrongful death suit for $12 million. The city of Louisville agreed to pay $12 million to the family of Breonna Taylor and institute a series of police reforms to settle the family's wrongful death suit, which, okay, that part I actually like. Of course, the family getting $12 million is nice, too. You can read about it on CNN. This is where I'm getting everything from. As part of the settlement, the city agreed to establish a housing credit program as an incentive for officers to live in the areas they serve, use social workers to provide support in certain police runs, which is way overdue, and require commanders to review and approve search warrants before seeking judicial approval, among other changes. So what do you guys think of that? My feeling is, well, I really like the what at least on paper is going to come of this. I almost feel like it's the city bought their way out of this.
They did buy their way out, and you know what? It just shows you that I think in the last 20 years how policing has gone from point A to, I don't know, almost Z in my view. I mean, I think about of all the retired police people that I knew, seems like their mental attitudes were a lot different than what they are now. Or is that just my imagination and how they did policing?
I think it depends on how far back you're going.
I'm only talking 25, 30 years.
That's a
I guess that's an eternity.
That's a career, right? I mean, 25 years, that's a career. So
that's a career, yeah. You know, and you think about just the training and lack of training. You know what? And the one thing I think should be mandated, if you want to be a cop in Louisville, Pittsburgh, LA, wherever, you know what? You got to live here.
I'll be honest, up until I saw that today, it never really even dawned on me that you could be an officer in a police department and not even live in the city, let alone the community. That never even dawned on me.
There was one of those cases that was recent. I don't know if it was George Floyd or it was somewhere else where who was it? Wasn't Reverend Al? Who's the other kind of a little bit of a activist preacher? And I can't think of his name. He's a reverend from Christ. What town is it? He's very well spoken, but he was at one of these hearings and basically said, "Do you realize the money that is the cities are giving away by employing police officers and they don't live in the city?" He said he says money alone plus when you take into the factor of them living next to the people they're policing, he says that goes a long way in community support. When a cop gets called and, maybe it diffuses the situation quicker and they say, "Oh, that's Officer Joe. He lives the next block down. Maybe I'll back off. I know his kids."
Well, I've always said that the best policing you can do can be from your own community.
Right. And I think a lot of that's been lost. I mean, I know of 2, 3, 4 Newcastle police officers I know that don't live in a city.
Yeah.
It's down here in Baltimore as well. They've made a push to try to make sure that police officers live in the city of Baltimore. When you're policing the city you live in, you take a more active role. Like you said, I think it's good points you made. You certainly care more about the community. You have community ties, as opposed to driving in. Some of them were driving in from Pennsylvania. They were driving in from go up by I-83 from Baltimore, and you're in Pennsylvania within like 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes. So folks were coming in from just in rural Pennsylvania between Baltimore and York, Pennsylvania, and coming down to make a decent buck in the city of Baltimore, and just like didn't care, they just get back in their car and leave at the end of the day. This meant nothing to them other than a paycheck. So that's an issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed. I just want to step back for a second though to the case. I just quickly looked at, while you guys were talking, who the attorneys were. Of course, we've talked about Ben Crump before. Ben Crump was representing Breonna Taylor's family. There were 2 other attorneys that were named in this, in some of the articles that were written about this, Lanita Baker and Sam Aguiar. So to me, there's a brain trust on this. It's not just one attorney. That's a good sign. And I think that when I looked at some of the articles that were quoting these folks, they said that the dollar settlement is just one layer to this. And as you started to point out, Patsy, that there's other issues where the city's going to be taking certain measures, like the housing for the incentivizing housing for police officers and some more community involvement with social workers. My only concern is I haven't seen anything that says there's a consent decree. And what's important about that is this. You can say whatever you want to say about a settlement and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. However, what's the enforcement to that? If there's not a consent decree in hand that says, if we don't do X, Y, and Z, you can go back in and enforce it in court. Also, as a lawyer who's worked in nonprofit before, one of the other things we push for in those consent decrees is a monitoring agency, whether it's a law firm, a nonprofit law firm, or some social workers, to monitor whether or not they're meeting the X, Y, and Z in that consent decree. So if they're saying we've got to make incentivized public housing or low-income housing for police officers, we want to go in and monitor how that's being done. Is it actually accomplishing having police officers live there? When do they have to have so many police officers live there by? Social workers have to get involved in some aspect of things that policing was, overstepping their bounds in, so to speak. So we're going to make sure that police aren't called for, this kind of domestic problem or this kind of social problem. So how are we making sure the city of Louisville is allocating dollars to these social workers to make sure that they can step in and do that? So to me, it's great they say those things, and it's great that those things are looked at, but I want to know how it's being monitored and enforced, and I haven't seen that yet. So, not saying it didn't happen, but these articles didn't cover whether there is a consent decree as a part of this settlement. And I'd be interested to find that out.
The other thing that gets me, part of this article said one of the stipulations of the settlement was the city has to use social workers to provide support on certain police runs, which basically means whenever somebody, whenever the person who's working 911 is told by the person calling them that the person that they're calling about has a mental problem or a mental condition, right, or there's something wrong with them. That happens whenever that subject is a minor all the time. When it's a minor, there's a social worker that goes with the police. It absolutely boggles my mind that there wouldn't be a social worker going with the police whenever this person is an adult. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen some 16, 17, 18-year-olds I don't want to meet in a dark alley, right? Big, strong people, okay? But yet we only applied the social worker standard to minors. That boggles my mind as well, because trust me when I tell you, I mean, I've taught guys in 27 states, okay? Trust me when I tell you, somebody who just wrote a parking ticket 10 minutes ago or a traffic stop 10 minutes ago doesn't want to have to deal with somebody who has a mental condition. First of all, they don't want to do it. Second of all, I promise you, they're not freaking equipped to do it. They don't know how, okay? So we can have a social worker there for a minor, you know, somebody under the age of 18, but if you're 28, cop's on his own. Now, if we're going to put a burden on the people who wear the badges, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, don't misunderstand me, but if we're going to do that, then we also have to make sure that they have the resources and the abilities to do their jobs correctly. Or we have a problem that is more than just a bad cop. We have now a institutional systemic problem, and both of us already know the answer to that question, right? But it goes to show that this is not just somebody who's out in a cruiser who's the problem. It's the institution that they're representing or that they're working for that is also, and maybe in a large extent, the bigger problem, because these guys can't do that. They can't handle somebody with a mental condition. They don't know how. They're not trained enough.
And let's face facts. You and I and Lou, we all know, because Lou, you have a brother that worked in the police. Patsy, you've trained police, and I've worked closely enough with police and from the legal side of things. We all know 100% without a doubt that any city of any size is going to have an issue with somebody with a mental health issue, and police are going to be called out to that issue. 100%, we can predict it. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen as sure as you're going to wake up in the morning.
Right. So here's the thing about that. I've been involved in lawsuits where we sued the city of Salisbury, for example, in Maryland, because they failed to put into effect a system that would aid their police officers to handle calls from people that speak Haitian Creole or Spanish. And it's a simple process. It's a simple way of handling it. And it's almost like they acted like they're never going to encounter somebody that speaks Haitian Creole or Spanish when they've got 5 to 10% of their population that is limited English proficient and speaks those two languages. And they know it from census numbers. They know it from the calls they've gotten. They've known it for years. So they couldn't claim ignorance. And what they did was they put their officers in a bad position. Just what you're saying, Patsy. They put their officers in an untenable position. So we sued them and we got them to agree to put in effect a policy that would help their officers and help the community. All they have to do is learn how to use language line. The point being, what you're talking about right now, you can guarantee that these officers are going to have to face mental health issues and be out to those things. So let's plan now. How do we best equip them to have somebody with them or to have a better resource to call to deal with that? Not put those officers in that situation. And to claim ignorance or to claim like we don't know this is going to happen, it's straight up, it's a lie. They know they're going to have to deal with it as a city or as a community.
And you know what else it does? It helps weed out the bad cops.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Except for the union who won't want it.
They should want it if it's sold in the right way, because look, their members would be helped by this. Their members wouldn't be strained and taxed by this, and they wouldn't be put in positions of possibly harming somebody and harming their own career or their reputation. So
And it's going to keep their members safe.
safe, number one. That's a big.
It's going to keep them safe.
Yep.
I don't know, Lou. Do you see them? Anybody ever employing something like this?
You know what? I lost the last minute. I got to go in and out. Somebody tried calling in. It cut the sound, and now the sound won't come back on right.
Well, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Not really.
I'm like a Verizon commercial. You want to kill it and come back?
Well, this is Verizon, so it sucks.
I want to hear you. You want to kill it and come back?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll pretend like you're still here.
We'll see you in a few seconds. You know, this is unfiltered. It's what we do.
This is why we're live, brother. This is how it goes.
That's right.
Frankie, you look at this thing, and like I said, I almost feel like people were cheated, and at the same time, I feel. I kind of feel happy for, well, not happy, but I feel like at least her family got some closure out of this whole thing, right? Even if the city did buy their way out of it. So there is like a glimmer of hope for me here. I still just have reservations about how this whole thing went down. I mean, if the family's happy and they're good with it, who am I to say otherwise? But just from the outside looking in, it just feels like, somebody bought their way out.
Well, the other attorneys that I mentioned, I think Aguiar was one that said his additional comment was there need to be arrests. There still need to be things done on this case to make it right. So I don't think that this is the last chapter in the case. I don't think that the family or the legal machinations here are done with this situation. I would hope that part of what was done was to gather evidence and gather information as well. Hey, Lou, welcome back. Was to gather information and evidence that will aid in the prosecution if necessary, and maybe that was a part of this too that kind of got this going. I'll just throw this out there: money, $12 million. It's at least a real value in terms of a city saying we're going to give something to you. Nothing will ever replace the life that was lost, and I could tell a personal injury lawyer or somebody that's handled big death cases or big cases where somebody's basically facing a loss of life as a result of a mistake made. There is no amount of money, nothing that will ever compensate a family or a person for that. But when you're dealing in the reality of insurance companies or actuaries that look at city funds that are available, that kind of dollar figure that they did settle for is real money. It's not a pittance, but I'm just saying that in terms of, actuaries looking at things. But as a human being and as a lawyer who represents people who are in those situations, you can never put that value that truly is the value of that person's life on it.
The part that really bothers me though, and I reread the article and I found out what's bothering me. Nothing happened to the cops that actually shot her.
Right.
That's the part that gets to me. Those guys got off again. And I think that's the part that bothers me the most. Glad the family got the 12 mil, right? I'm glad they got the 12 bills. They should have got 24. And I'm glad that, these things were put in place. But at the end of the day, the assholes that pulled the trigger got off. Or at least that way.
Did you see in that they claimed they didn't have body cams, then a picture taken right before or right after showed the cop with the body cam that was never turned on?
Yeah, I love how they do that. It's never turned on now. That's always the good one now. Oops, I forgot to turn it on. Oops, I forgot.
And they always have them on when they're making a rescue or something that's going to be good PR. They seem to always be on then, right? Which Look, I always want the feel good stories too, but they're there for a reason. They should be automatically activated. It shouldn't even be an option that they could, turn it off when they're engaged in some kind of interaction with the public.
Yeah, and look, whenever the whole body cam thing was starting to gain traction. I talked to certain people who were all for it. They were all excited about it. They were like, finally we're going to be able to see what actually happens there. And I'm thinking, the hell's wrong with you? If I'm dirty, or if I'm racist, if I'm whatever, if let's say I'm the most racist fucker you ever saw in your life, and I'm going into an area, or I'm being called to something where we have African Americans, we have women, or we have whatever who are involved. Do you really think I'm going to turn that damn camera on? You're leaving it up to me. You really think I'm going to do that? Or do you really think my partner's going to turn mine on? Or their own? No, they're not going to. There's no way in hell they're going to. You'd be a fool to do that. So I'm not a big fan of these body cams to begin with, unless you can tell me that they are on from the time this guy starts his shift to the time he ends it. It's on 24/7. It's on constantly for his entire shift. It doesn't turn off. And he has no control over it. He can't reach in and turn it on and off. There's no on-off switch for him. Okay? Then maybe I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, because you can still go back to the to the barracks or whatever and play around with that. I know there's facilities here where people are in charge of the well-being of other people who know exactly where those cameras are. And it doesn't seem to matter.
Well,
so it seems like it's a big game.
Taser is the company that oversees a large portion of the cloud computing, or the cloud network that holds the body cam footage. So I don't know, how many police forces around the country, around the world use it, but it's a large percentage of them that do. And so as soon as it records, it's supposed to be sent right up to the cloud computing that Taser controls, which is, of course, the same company that does the tasers. That's a product name, but they actually control that on the police body cams as well. So the footage is really uploaded to a cloud server immediately. So hopefully, if those things are being utilized, then it can't be manipulated from a local level. But I don't know how many folks are actually, bought into that.
Yeah, especially if there's a significant fee involved in that, or the municipality's probably not going to justify paying for it.
Right.
Two other things at least two other things I wanted to talk about today. Both of them pretty controversial. Frank, I think you and I had talked, and we may have talked offline, not being live for everybody to see or not. I honestly don't remember, but I know I talked to my wife about it. And I said, I wonder when you're looking at all of these, we saw a lot of it whenever we had the protests were really in high gear. The BLM protests, when they were really in live gear, or at least whenever they were getting a lot of the media attention. And you saw how a lot of these folks were basically being abused. I mean, let's face it, you had a whole lot of people who were just being abused. And I remember looking at my wife, and like I said, Frank, I may have said something to you, and I said, I wonder when are these guys going to start firing back? Because you're only going to take so much, right? And whenever you have something that's very systematic, very institutional, who is constantly covering up for its own, people can't separate the things, right? People can't do it. So this article is coming from the Daily Mail, the UK Daily Mail. Now, if you're a soccer aficionado, the Daily Mail sometimes isn't your best source for anything, right? But I wanted you guys to see this here real quick and tell me what you thought. The Compton ambush on the two deputies, quote, was a revenge attack against officers for recent police shootings against black men in LA. Obviously, this is somebody who's telling the reporter this, right? The two LA County Sheriff's Department deputies were ambushed by an unknown man 7 o'clock Sunday night while they sat in their patrol car. Fox News reporter William something or other.
Ness.
Yeah, forget it. There's no way in hell, Frank. There's no way in hell I can say that name. You know me by now, right? Los Angeles police will not say this publicly, but some believe this ambush was retaliation. Do you guys think that that's at least a possibility? I know I kind of caught you off guard with this one. Do you think that something like this is at least a possibility? And if it is a possibility, do you think maybe this is going to happen again?
I think it's a good possibility. I thought that when I saw that footage, when you see everything going on across the country, I mean, I didn't hear anybody advocating for it, but it's like Trump saying, and Tucker almost praising the asshole in Wisconsin. You know what? And I could see it happening again. I mean, wait till the next shooting of a black guy or woman that seemingly has no justification or death, whether it be shooting, a chokehold, or whatever it might be. I could see it happening again. And you know what? And if you look at that video of that guy shooting the two cops, do you think that was a juvenile?
Looked like a little kid to me.
I mean, that kid didn't even go to the top of that police car.
That's right. That's exactly what I pointed out to, I was talking to somebody about it the other day, and it looked like it was just the head was right at the middle of the window. But I agree with you, Lou, and I think it's a valid question, Patsy. Here's my take on it, though. I think it's definitely, to your point, Lou, it could have been a bunch of kids sitting around saying, "Can you believe what these cops are doing to us? Can you believe this? We got to go out and make them pay for this." It could have been that. I mean, we're just speculating. It could have been retaliation for a particular shooting that happened. But here's the difference between the left progressives and the right is that I'll sit here and I'll say, and I've talked to many people about this already, I'm praying and mourning for those two people that were in that car, those two human beings that were in that car, and they were shot. I understand what's going on in our country right now. I get it that this probably never happens. It's such an outlier that this probably never happens had there not been Jacob Blake and Breonna Taylor and the list goes on, Philando Castile, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah,
had all that, and then Trump on top of it, inciting all this bullshit. You probably don't have this, and that's not justifying what happens, but you probably just don't even see this kind of thing happen had you not had all that. But I mourn for those two people that were in that car, and I really hope that they somehow, I hope they pull through, and if they didn't, I'm sorry I didn't know the news that if anybody died. I really am sorry. I'm ignorant to that at this point in time. If they did, I feel bad for their families, but I also feel bad for Jacob Blake's kids, and I mourn for his kids, and that they're sad, and they see that their dad might not walk again, and Philando Castile's kid and his fiance, and Breonna Taylor and her family, and everybody else, that's been a victim of senseless violence, and no justice has come from most of these situations, and that's the difference between I think the left and the right is. We can tease all this out, and we can understand it's wrong, and we're not advocating for either of these things, and they should both be stopped. And the root problem needs to be addressed. The root problem is that we don't have anybody that's trying to heal this from a standpoint of understanding what's going on has been totally broken, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to be more than just saying, it's wrong. We have to take actual steps to stop it and to correct it, and weed it out, not just to stand by and shake our heads that's terrible. So to me, don't get, not the two of us, the three of us that are sitting here, but I'm speaking to everybody out there. Don't get sucked into this idea that that somehow, we're cheering this on as the liberal left, like the radical right is cheering on, when this 17-year-old shooter walks down the street in Kenosha and shoots people. We're saying there's something seriously wrong in our society. This is a symptom of it, and it's awful, and it needs to be corrected. And we mourn everybody that's been harmed by it.
Lou, I often argue that the people who are the ones in authority, or who are at least the people who are perceived to be in power, have the responsibility to de-escalate things, sometimes even before that happens, before something starts. Do you think folks shouldn't have seen this coming? Maybe not these guys in particular, but some sort of, you know what, you're going to shoot our ass? Fuck you, I'm going to shoot you first.
You would think any police chief worth his anything, sheriff, whatever, wouldn't you think you'd say, you know what, guys, just be on the ball, don't get lax right now. Try and defuse the situation, but be on guard for an ambush. You never know. I mean, they're supposed to be anyhow, because you never know. But you know, it should be reinforced every time they go out on patrol. It's just, and that looked like, who knows, opportune situation. They're sitting there having coffee or whatever. They see a little short guy or whatever it was perceived as a non-threat. But how do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, our soldiers that are in the Middle East don't perceive young people as a non-threat. They can't lose their lives.
Everybody's a threat, right? Whenever the only thing, if I am somebody who's constantly feeling persecuted, okay, whether I actually am or not is an argument for another time. But if I honestly feel that I'm being persecuted all the time simply because of who I am or what I am, there's going to come a breaking point. Okay, there's going to become a point where I just don't care anymore. And this idea of me starting to restrain myself while you have free will to do whatever you want to either me or people who look like me or people who act like me, who, you know, regardless of what it is. And if I'm young, because, you know, young and stupid, you know, what's what's the line, right? Youth is always wasted on the young, right? At some point, you're going to have people who are just going to snap. So you know what? That's enough.
Leadership could try to diffuse some of that, and I don't know that it's going to take time. Clearly,
yeah.
That
this didn't happen overnight.
No, it's not going to be reversed quickly. And thank you for the comments that are being put up on the screen. I can appreciate 100% some of the comments that are being put up there. I get it. You know what? We have extremes in this country. The extremes in this country have taken over our country, unfortunately. And, you know, the people on the extremes have made this country get to a point where, you know, we're literally in a philosophical civil war that is starting to break down and deteriorate in our streets into a physical civil war.
Yep.
So, you know, if you don't like extremism, just as I don't like extremism, then it's probably your duty as a citizen to talk to folks who are believing in extreme theories and extreme ideas like QAnon, which is basically a philosophy that's been a repackaged Nazi,
Nazi propaganda repackaged, basically.
Propaganda repackaged for today. And you need to understand that. Not you that's making these particular comments, but people that are out there that are spreading this kind of craziness. And it's just causing a bigger divide. And what it is it's a foreign government that wants us to be divided and wants us to hate on each other and wants us to break down as a society, because then we're weaker and we can't defend ourselves like the great country that we are. So if you really are against extremism, then you have to look at both sides of the extremism and start to try to educate and actually be a healer. Actually be a healer, not just say, I hate this, I hate that, but actually look at ways to heal that. So thank you for joining our show, and thank you for giving your comments. And I hope that you'll go out armed with the ability to speak wisdom and truth to power to people.
Lou, do you first of all, everything Frank said was dead on. You see this happening anytime soon? Or do you think we're so far divided that it's going to take? And let me ask you another question, since we are a political podcast after all. Do you think that's my first question? My second question is: do you think Joe Biden can bridge that gap that we have?
You know what? He may be the right person at the right time. Given his age and being in the system for so long, I mean, when you hear him speak, he's even stated, "I speak for all Americans." It's known he's had the respect of most people on the conservative side forever. And him maybe just coming out and the way he talks to people, it's going to take time. I mean, he wins big. There's going to be an initial rush of assholes out there doing stuff. You know that.
Yep.
But he's going to gradually say, look, I'm doing this for everybody. I don't care if you're from South Carolina or Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's the same. We have to help. We have to heal. This is a country that has to come together to cure. It's one step at a time. Is he going to do it in 2 years or 4? No, but it could turn the right direction, is my feeling.
You don't turn.
It has to start somewhere. You don't have an instant house. You build it from a foundation up to do it properly. And it's going to be, and I think one of the keys to a faster healing is to get McConnell the fuck out of the Senate.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Yeah, we have to have some the hyper partisanship that has been perpetuated in the Senate and the House to some extent has hindered any kind of progress. And I don't say that as a progressive. I mean just progress in terms of let's get roads built, let's get bridges repaired, let's get the economy started, let's get something done on healthcare. So yeah, thanks for that comment, Bob Lust. Definitely, he's a hindrance to this. And like to answer your question, Patsy, and to jump on what Lou said about Biden. Yeah, I'll use my other analogy. You can't turn an aircraft carrier on a dime. Somebody's got to start turning the helm, and it takes time. Okay, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. You have to look at the country and say, we're going in the wrong direction. We're going in the wrong direction. Whoever you want to blame for that, that's fine. But we're going in the wrong direction. So if somebody's going to, turn the helm and say, let's change it around, to me, I think somebody like Biden, who has a calming presence, who isn't going to try to incite violence, who isn't going to try to, rah-rah somebody who does something to harm somebody. He's come out and said he has differentiated in his speeches protest from rioting. He has differentiated protest from looting. He has made those distinctions, and there shouldn't be a question on anybody's mind whether he's going to continue that as he's in office.
I think that's probably the one thing, the one strength that Biden has is the people who are going to be interviewed. Okay, the people in the House, the people in the Senate, the Mitch McConnells of the world, sorry to say, but they all dealt with Joe before, and they know who they're dealing with here, right? I mean, this is the guy who damn near single-handedly got the Senate to approve the Affordable Care Act, right? I mean, he did that pretty much on his own. I mean, Obama had a lot to do with it, but he's the guy that went to his fellow senators and said, hey, look, we got to do that. He bridged the gap there, okay? It's going to be very difficult to foul-mouth him now and have any kind of credibility. His running mate, though, is a prosecutor. So do you think she has the ability to bridge these gaps pretty much hand in hand with Joe, or do you think that she's going to be the hammer that he's going to use to tamp down those who aren't on board, which is not really how I meant to say that, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying. I'll start with Lou.
You know, that's a tough question because she is a prosecutor, but also listening to her speak, you know, very smart woman. Maybe the key to her is going to be reaching out to those communities and stuff and saying, look, we're going to do the reform. And then coming back to the Senate, you know, and saying, look, we need to turn things around. I could see her going both directions. Maybe Joe actually being the little more of a hammer than her in the Senate because of his tenure there. And also, she can go back to them and say, look, we need the reform. We need this passed. Hopefully, she'll be dealing with Nancy to start reforms on that side to do what has to be done. Like I said, looking at this country right now, you talk about needing a complete rebuild, overhaul. I think maybe some of the stress will come out if Biden wins before that January 20th date. God, you know, I'll breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, that's a good question, or that's a good shout. Frank, do you think that just by Biden being elected, he's going to relieve a lot of the anxiety and tension that we have?
I mean, it depends. I mean, you know, some of the comments that we've been making here is that if he wins big, I think if he wins big, yes. I think if it's a close race, then we still have a lot of tension. I mean, I think if it's a close election, we still have a lot of tension. And there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. We don't know how it's going to play out. But, you know, I think that, you know, there's a possibility that if it's, you know, 300 plus electoral votes for Biden and you know, 100 and something for Trump, it's probably going to be fairly calm. If it's, you know, if it's 10 or 15 electoral votes apart, I don't know. But, you know, back to the original question about Kamala, I think Biden will be the first person to reach across the aisle. And I think he'll be the first person to say, guys, I was in the Senate for a long time. I understand how this works. I remember when we used to be able to get these things done. And let's try to find common ground. Let's try to heal this country. Let's be the heroes. Let's do what we need to do. And I think he'll be able to like set that tone. And then I think Kamala will have the energy, and I don't mean to be stereotypical in the sense of young versus an older person, but she's got a lot of good, you know, ideas and platforms that she brought to the table. Remember when she was running for president herself and she talked about her platform. And I could tell you, being in a room with people that are like boots on the ground, planning, kind of, I don't want to use an overused old term, but Six Sigma, like how to run a meeting, how to make sure that you're looking at your next steps, what people are going to get those next steps done. Those are important things. And somebody's got to be in control of that. And I see her as being somebody who's run a prosecutor's office, who's run, you know, a senatorial office, who's got those capabilities. And she'll be that person that actually makes sure that those things get checkmarked along the way. It's a very important job, and somebody has to have a lot of energy and also diplomacy to do it. And I think she has that.
Yeah, I always looked at her as the spine of this thing. You know, where Joe is what you see, and he's the interaction, but Kamala's the spine. She's the one that keeps going to keep this thing where it's supposed to be. And sometimes she's going to have to not be so nice to do. It's a really interesting point that you made, Lou, where you think Joe's actually going to be the one doing that. That's he was for Obama, that's for sure. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick, and you know, we're very quickly running out of time. First of all, folks, I believe Lou put this on our. He put this in our Discord channel today. And if you want in our Discord channel, please let us know. Drop us a line. We'll see what we can do about getting you in there. I don't know how many people actually follow Vice News, I guess it would be, or what people think about it. Vice is readily part of MSNBC News, so apparently there's something there to them. But they had a story today that was rather discerning, disturbing. And I know, Lou, like I said, you had posted this in our group. I'm going to make this nice and big. The staggering number of hysterectomies happening at ICE facility, according to a whistleblower. I will be the first to say, guys, I could not find anything to collaborate this at all. Okay. That being said, I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking either, which is probably on me. I probably should have spent a little bit more time than I did. But apparently we have people at ICE facilities who are basically deciding to sterilize people. The one quote is, that's his specialty. He's the uterus collector. Guys, this is incredibly disturbing if it's true. First of all, let me ask you guys this much: do you think this thing is true, or do you think there's somebody that's hyping it up a little bit? Frank, I'll start with you, since I've been starting with.
It's hard to tell. I think at the very least it should grab attention. It's a very and first off, thank you for Bob Lest sticking with us and making comments about all of our segments. You're right. We don't need to play the blame game. We definitely need to come together. But on this topic, we do need to look into it, because if there's a reporting going on that this could be happening, I just don't know what the oversight is. Like right now, there doesn't seem to be much oversight. There's not a lot of people going in there and checking on folks. There's not a lot of reporting coming out of there. So if there are folks that this is happening to, it's absolutely, it's disgusting from a human rights standpoint. It's illegal. It needs to stop, and we need to do something about it. But the only thing I can say is it needs to be looked into, because none of us can independently verify it unless there's somebody that goes in there and actually verifies it. But the reporting enough is disturbing enough to say people need to go in and check it out.
Lou, did you happen to find any other reporting to verify this?
I had heard, you see stuff that, here's CNN an hour ago. Whistleblower alleges high rate of hysterectomies and medical neglect at ICE. So it looks like somebody's starting to pick it up.
Okay, they're at least making inquiries about it.
Yeah, now they're starting to ask questions. Here, 4 hours ago, from Forbes, Pelosi calls for investigation into claims of mass hysterectomies. So it got to her attention. And that's Forbes, which is not a liberal publication.
Not by any means, huh?
So, Forbes picked it up. And now Vox has picked it up in this afternoon. So it's starting to move. So there has to be a little credence to it if you have Pelosi, CNN, NBC, Forbes, and a few others starting to look at it now.
The whistleblower did their job. They called this out, and then it's up to the investigators to get in there. And it seems like enough attention is getting on it to see if the investigators can come in and verify this or not. So that's to me is the hopeful sign, and hopefully they'll do a thorough job and either rule out that it's not true, or if it is, find out it is true. Then they take steps to, number one, get it stopped. Number two, make amends, and get this person that's done this. They have to pay a price for that if they did do this.
The complaint filed, and I'm reading from the Vice article, the complaint filed on behalf of several detained immigrants and a nurse named Dawn Wooten, W-O-O-T-E-N. Trust me, now she's she's going to get death threats. Details several accounts of recent jarring medical neglect at the Irwin County Detention Center in Georgia, which is run by the private prison company LaSalle South Creek Corrections, and houses people incarcerated by ICE. When I met all these women who had surgeries, I thought this was like an experimental concentration camp, said one woman, who said she'd met 5 women who's had hysterectomies after being detained between October and December of 2019. The woman said immigrants at Irwin are often sent to see one particular gynecologist outside of the facility. It's like they're experimenting with their bodies. In one case, and I know I'm reading for a while, but just bear with me. In one case, Wooden said, a woman who ended up with a hysterectomy was not properly anesthetized, and overheard the doctor say he'd taken out the wrong ovary. That woman had to go back and get her other ovary removed as well, Wooten said. We've questioned among ourselves, like, goodness, he's taking everybody's stuff out, said Wooden, who was a full-time employee at Irwin until July. That's his specialty. He's the uterus collector. I know that's ugly. This goes beyond disturbing if this is true. We have now hit 1940s Nazi Germany. Without question, we have. If we're going to start doing this, we've crossed the threshold that there's probably no going back from. I really don't know what to say. I really don't.
Human depravity and human frailty, and also human capacity to do good, is always in our nature. And when you leave people with this power to control other people without any checks on them, there's a possibility that things like this can happen. And it's scary and it's sad and it's disturbing, and it's things that keep people up at night. And if it's true, it's a warning or a clarion call that, this kind of stuff from the beginning, detaining people, it's just got to show people that the human rights violations just by detaining them and keeping control over their bodies leads to stuff like this, leads to the potential for this kind of stuff to happen. That's what I'm saying. Just human beings, man. Just listen to this. This has got to end.
Lou, if this is true, how long before we start branding, numbers on people's wrists?
Yeah, that's disturbing. I think we talked about that before. There's not enough of those people left because of age to give us a stark reminder of what can happen and how quickly it happens. How many stories have you heard from Germany in the 30s that, that little bit at a time that Trump's doing right now, that the far right's doing right now, all of a sudden it becomes the norm. And before you know it, there was Kristallnacht and Jews wearing stars. I mean, what's the difference? What are they going to have these people wear? We're Catholic. Are they going to make them put a Virgin Mary logo on them or something? I mean, I might be going to extreme, but are you that far away?
Yeah. And a good comment, these people were outsourced to somebody, what you read in the story, and it's something that, that's an issue that, is going to be a piece of where is the control lying with this? It was sent to an outsourced gynecologist. How are they going to control what was done at that outsourced gynecologist? Who's going to be responsible for that? That's a good question, and it raises a lot more questions. A couple things I wanted to bring up today. Hopefully I can just squeeze these in before we get done. One is yesterday we didn't have a show because we're going to stop temporarily. We're going to stop Mondays. We will be here Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays with political commentary, and Wednesdays will be with soccer. So please join us again as we go through the following weeks, and we'll give you updates on social media as to when we'll be here. But yesterday, the Drudge Report issued. They reposted a report from another magazine that indicated that it was an opinion piece, but based upon fact that Trump could be indicted sooner than later, and it was examining the possibility that Trump could be indicted for certain crimes. They kind of ruled out the possibility federally because of, and we don't have enough time to go into it right now, but not that he didn't commit crimes federally or allegedly commit crimes federally, but that it would be difficult to do that for a variety of reasons, but that it's very likely on a state level that he could be indicted very soon. The right side of the media, the far right side of the media, or the right side of the media, the folks that wear the MAGA hats, lost their minds and really wanted to cancel Drudge, and Trump wanted to cancel Drudge. And he came out and said, Drudge is losing all his followers and let's cancel him, essentially. And it's funny for somebody who started his campaign this season by saying cancel culture is out of control. We need to stop cancel culture. As soon as somebody said something that he didn't like to hear, he wants to cancel them. What did you guys think about that yesterday?
Yeah, I actually had to bring that article up. It was like I couldn't even tell you when I accidentally even saw Drudge, let alone searched for it.
Yeah, and it's like all of a sudden we're looking for it, right? It's like, oh shit, I got to see this.
Yeah, I got to see what they say, and you know what? Like you said, whatever they said made a lot of sense. And it was like, yeah, they kind of laid it out like, here it is, believe it or not, his ass could be grass. And they don't, you're right. The right wing does not want to hear that.
No.
And they laid it out right for him.
Yeah, I'm gonna take more of a left-handed approach to this. I'm gonna argue that the reason Drudge did that is because they want to keep this guy on the ball, and they see what's coming, and they tried everything short of doing something like this to tell him, get your head back in the game because we need you. And this was a last resort for them.
It's very possible. There's so many psyops going on all the time. It's possible that could be a thing. None of the quote unquote saviors have ever come to, save us, quote unquote, from Trump and any of his actions, that whether they've been illegal or not. So just an article doesn't really do much. And it could very well be that these psyops are a thing, Patsy. I don't doubt that one bit. One last little thing that I wanted to say. Thank you. I'm sorry for jumping in at the end.
Oh.
I unfortunately share a name with the guy who tried to pull a bullshit hoax on the city of Baltimore and black folks, African Americans. He tweeted yesterday, or September 13th, he tweeted that his daughter was driving through Baltimore. The guy works in Austin, Texas as a doctor, apparently. His name is Dr. Andrea Nattel. He works as a doctor in Texas, Austin, Texas, but he tweeted that his daughter was driving through the city of Baltimore with her boyfriend, and they got attacked by Black Lives Matter protesters. The boyfriend got beat up and the car was damaged, and she supposedly had video of this. So it seemed very suspicious to me because I've been in Baltimore since before September 13th, never heard a thing about it. But he said that the police don't want to do anything about it because they're quote-unquote African Americans. I thought that was weird. So I challenged him to produce the video to WJZ in Baltimore, which is a CBS affiliate, or another news station, Fox News station here in Baltimore, because they do very regularly run news pieces when they want to call out the police or the mayor for things like that. And nothing was ever produced. Now he's hiding. He is no longer showing his Twitter profile because apparently there was some squeegee kids who like to clean off the windows, and these people didn't want them cleaning their windows, so they started shouting at them. And it was nothing more than just a little minor disturbance. And the guy tried to make a big deal out of it and tried to say that, people were getting beat up in Baltimore by Black Lives Matter protesters when it had nothing to do with that at all. And he thought he was going to get away with this, but it was proven to be false by other people who were videotaping the incident. And now he's in hiding. So my only point about this is don't believe everything you read on Twitter or Facebook. Ask for the proof. And just because it's sexy to your ears and you think, well, these are these Black Lives Matter protesters, you know what they're doing, they're causing trouble. Maybe they're not.
Yeah. Well, you guys know how the only reason we're on Facebook is because we need the platform. What do you think? We got to end. We got to end this on a high note too.
Okay, I got one. It's the question to Frank. How's 93 Messi working for you in FIFA 21?
Not as well as he did in FIFA 20, which is to say that not very well. Here's the problem. I'm not lucky enough to get him. I hope someday get them and answer your question directly.
It's like we've been waiting for 2 days to throw that at you.
Oh, and by the way, I actually started studying the Premier League a little bit.
Nice.
Did you pick a side yet?
You know what? Let me ask you this because I don't know. This is, of course, you'll do soccer tomorrow, and it probably good chance it's my last week because of how fast it's getting dark now. When you see plus minus, does that work the same as hockey? Like for
No.
Takeaways, giveaways. What's that mean?
Plus minus, you're talking goal differential.
Is that what that is? Like
it's not an individual thing where they get a plus when a goal is scored on the ice and a minus when it's scored against them. It's whenever you see a plus or a minus, you're talking about goal differential
for the
team. The amount of goals you scored as a team against the amount of goals you've given up as a team.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. We really appreciate you joining us. It was great having you. We'll be back tomorrow. Boy, I hope you like soccer because we're talking about Italian soccer tomorrow. So Bob Les, thank you very much for joining us. So anyhow, that's how you get your plus minus is strictly goal differential. That's it. And it's important because since you have a table and you don't have a playoff system, in most leagues, your goal differential is your tiebreaker.
Okay.
Okay. So GF and that plus minus is a huge stat. It really is. It means a whole lot. So for everybody watching, thank you all very much. Tomorrow, Frank and I, we might have a guest or two. We're gonna have to talk about it. We'll be talking about Italian soccer, Serie A, the top league especially. Really, really hard to do, but it is probably the league that is closest to our hearts, especially mine and Frank's. We enjoy the Prem and Spanish, and I'm getting more and more into German soccer, but Italian soccer is always real close to my heart, and I know it is for Frank too. So Lou will be golfing. He'll be smacking his balls around. We're going to be kicking ours. So that's how it works. So thank you everybody for joining us, and until tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. We'll see you guys all then. Thanks a lot.